But it has all become very real for us, you know, over the past 10 years. And we do keep what is called a Bible. And it is a rundown on every major character who's ever been in the show and the major storylines. And also all our likes and dislikes that the writers have to be very conscious of to make it authentic.
Yes.
I mean, for instance, it's established none of us are allowed to smoke, of course. For instance, Meg Richardson doesn't drink whiskey. That's because Noele Gordon doesn't drink whiskey. It's a terrible admission for a Scot to make that she doesn't drink whiskey. But, you know, all these little foibles, you know, that we have.
Yes. The other thing, on the serious side of Crossroads, that you do have quite a responsibility about what you're doing on the series, don't you? I mean, anything you made, I know you've dealt with things like the Samaritans and alcoholism and Roger Tong, Sandy's, your son in the series, his illness and this sort of thing.
Yes.
You have to be very careful because you could mislead. You have a sort of social responsibility to...
Oh, yes, indeed. And taking, for example, the story of Sandy being crippled, this took months of research, and we had tremendous help from one of the big orthopaedic hospitals and a team of people advising us so that his treatment and everything was absolutely authentic, because people in a similar situation to him who watched the programme would be very quick to spot any discrepancy in his treatment. And it's proved a very well worthwhile thing, this story of being handicapped, because we have, through ATV and the Orthopaedic Hospital in Shrewsbury, actually got a service going to help the people who have to look after paraplegics and tetraplegics, and it's proved very well worthwhile.
And of course, it would be almost impossible or very difficult to give Sandy a cure, because that might raise hopes in similar cases?
Yes, indeed. It would raise false hopes, and it would also, I think, let people down in a similar situation, you know, who have really lived this with us, and then they would turn around and say, oh yes, well, he's got cured, it was just a story after all, and we would have undone all the good we think we've done.
Yes. Could we talk just for a moment about the sheer physical problem of doing Crossroads? I mean, you do 4 half hours every week, and that in itself must be a very taxing and exhausting thing.
Well, it is, you know, and I think it's a thing that unless people have really lived with us through a week or two of Crossroads, I don't think anybody really realises what hard work it is. We rehearse for 3 days from 10 in the morning till 6 at night, and on Thursdays and Fridays we do 2 episodes, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. We're in the studio from 9 in the morning till 8 at night, and we get Saturdays off, maybe, if we're not rushing round opening something or closing something, and Sundays if we're not doing charity concerts. And then Monday it starts all over again, and we are virtually learning a full-length play every week between Monday morning, and we have to be word perfect on Wednesday morning.
And what sort of effect has it had on the characters? I mean, their private lives. I mean, you must have to meet people almost in a dual role. I mean, people do really think you're Meg Richardson.
Yes, they do.
You live there, and people apply to you for jobs and things.
Oh, yes, they do. Indeed, they do. Yes, we're always having, you know, if anybody leaves the motel, we get a show of applications in, and we, you know, from all kinds of silver waiters and people that really,
they're all in the book here, aren't they?
I know,
really
that we don't know too much about, and we get really authentic inquiries to go and do outside catering and things like this. But as far as our private lives and our social lives are concerned, you have to virtually give that up, because you know, you say you'll go out to dinner, you know, and you'll be with your friends at 8:30. That's the night something goes wrong and you don't get away. So you really have to give up a great deal of your private life to a programme like this.
Yes. You've also managed to include in the series occasional guest celebrities and guest artists dropping in. In fact,
Yes.
I had a friend of yours on the telephone to me this very morning.
Really?
Who said, Derek, you've got my Nolly on the show today. Now, need I say more?
I've got a very good idea who that is.
He said, all I had to say to you was, have you ever got sorted out with the ferrets?
I'll kill him. I really will kill him.
It is, of course, for everyone else's benefit, dear Larry Grayson.
I think there is, dear Larry Grayson. But you know, I swung a great thing on Larry. I don't know if he's told you this. Have you heard about the writ I served on him?
Yes, at the Palladium.
No, on his opening night in the pantomime.
Ah.
Because he said such dreadful things about me at the Palladium. You know, that I was lame and I was very old and I was blind and I was deaf. And I said to him, I'm going to serve a writ on you, you know. And a barrister friend of mine did draw up the most marvellous writ. And I went and served it on him on his opening night.
Yes.
That took him aback. For once, he was speechless.
It didn't take him very far aback, if I may say so, because you know where that writ is now?
No.
It is framed on the wall of his house, and he's very proud of it, yes. Yes, he shows all his friends, you know.
He's a character.
Again, turning to a more serious note, like all popular programmes and programmes that appeal to masses of people, we get our critics, don't we? I mean, I get them on Mr. and
Yes,
Mrs. You
indeed.
get them on Crossroads. How do you answer people who say it is trivial and it's rubbish and it's so on?
Well, of course, the trouble is, Derek, that you can't answer critics. We get a terrible drubbing in the papers, I think, as most popular programmes do. But the thing I find so unfair is that they are measuring us up against a product, perhaps like Play of the Month, Play of the Week, or whatever, that takes 3 or 4 weeks to do what we do in 3 days. And one must accept that we know Crossroads isn't perfect. I don't think any television programme is perfect. But we are doing a solid, honest job. We're entertaining an awful lot of people, doing a little bit of good on the side. And I think for critics to knock us the way they do is most unfair. And if we do ever, by chance, get one to come up and stay with us for a few days, they don't knock us anymore, because they then understand what we're trying to do. We accept informed criticism, and if somebody can suggest any way of making the programme better, of course we accept that. But we do resent the cheap cracks that are made at us by, you know, uninformed people in the press. I think this is most unfair, and you probably have suffered from it yourself. But after all, 40 million people love us. Why should we worry about 8 critics? You know?
That's true. How far ahead do you manage to plan the storyline and the development of the stories?
Well, it depends. It took a very long time to get me into prison. It took about 6 months to get me into prison. It all depends on the difficulty of the storyline, but mainly our storylines are about 6 months ahead, and our scripts are actually written about 3 months ahead.
Talking about being in prison, I think they were very glad to get you out of there, weren't they? Particularly the prison in Birmingham, where everybody thought you were.
Everybody thought I was in Winson Green, which is the gentleman's prison, and they had a very... They had a very hard time. They were getting all kinds of things, like files and saws sent to them, I think, for me to get out. And they were most cooperative, but they were very glad to see me go through the prison gates, I must say.